Hi, I'm Shelby Lee, and this is the Relationship as Medicine podcast. This is a space, a refuge, where we explore healing beyond pathology, where connection itself is the medicine, and fixing is never the goal. This season, we're expanding into even more conversations around trauma, neurodivergence, and what it means to be in truly supportive and empowering healing relationships. For therapists, practitioners, and anyone curious about their own nervous system or neurotype, especially those of us who have spent a lifetime looking like we're doing pretty well on the outside while carrying so much inside. This is for the kindred, deep feelers, and sensitive souls who have ached for so long. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. We are back for part 2 of my conversation with Nyck Walsh, and I'm really looking forward to where this one goes. I loved our first conversation, and it's kind of wild to realize it's been about 7 months since we recorded it. Since then, Nyck and I have been chatting away about neurodivergence, somatics, therapy, identity, life, and just having a lot of fun becoming friends in the process. So, this one feels really alive to me. It feels like a continuation of something ongoing, something personal, and something we both care a lot about. Nyck also recently released his beautiful new book, Neurodivergent Somatics in Therapy, an anti-oppressive model for whole person care, which makes this conversation feel especially timely. In this episode, we get into questions of safety, healing, non-pathologizing care, diagnosis, labels, power, and what it means to support neurodivergent people in ways that are actually collaborative and humane. If you haven't listened to part 1, I'd really encourage you to start there. But either way, I'm glad you're here. And with that, Nyck, I'd love to invite you to introduce yourself, share where you're joining us from, and tell us a little about what feels important as we begin.
Okay, thanks, Shelby.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nyck Walsh. My pronouns are he, they. I am coming to you today from the stolen lands of the Arapaho, Ute, Cheyenne, and many other indigenous peoples, colonially known as Coal Creek Canyon in Colorado. And uh, I want to feel into and just take a moment to in offering gratitude to our precious earth while and also to Shelby and to just take a moment to acknowledge some two really important teachers in my life who have made this moment possible in terms of how profoundly they've influenced me. One of them is Dr. Carla Sherrill. She's a former grad school professor of mine and a mentor who has taught me so much about anti-oppression work. And I wouldn't be the social justice counselor I am today without her influence. And then a newer teacher of mine, Dr. Rocio Rosales Mesa, who has been helping me to unlearn my white colonized mind. And I'm profoundly grateful for her influence. Yeah, I notice when it comes to introducing myself, I tend to be like, I don't know what to say. Hi, I'm Nyck. But maybe people want more than that. Um, I guess I could say that I'm a somatic psychotherapist, I'm a counselor educator. I'm also officially now a published author, which is wild to say. Thank you, Shelby. I recently had a book release that I wrote called Neurodivergent Somatics in Therapy, an anti-oppressive model for whole person care. It's only a couple weeks that it's been officially out in the world. So my work, I'm a Oh, right, part of my introduction. So I'm a autistic. I prefer to use KCS or VAST as alternatives to ADHD. Those are my two of my neurotypes that I embody. I'm also trans. depending on the day, I may say transmasculine or trans. It's a little bit fluid. I'm queer. I'm a Jewish person deeply invested in a free Palestine. I'm also a white person. Um, yeah, those are my key identities that feel really important to share, and they deeply inform my lived experience and my professional experience and the lenses through which I exist and show up as a therapist, as well as a counselor educator.
I'm just so moved by how you take time to really share who you are and where you come from in the way that you do. And I was curious if it would feel meaningful to just share how it feels for you to be able to do that.
Yeah, in hearing you ask me that, I can feel into how many decades it's taken me to get to this point in my journey that I could um, comfortably, humbly, and shyly, but like confidently also say, like, hey, this is who I am. And as much as I'm navigating the discomfort of being more perceived publicly, especially with my book having recently come out, um, there is something really beautiful about feeling more permission to take up space and to say, hey, this is who I am. And I really appreciate you, yeah, inviting me to do that in all the ways that it's also uncomfortable.
Yes. Taking up more space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
Let's start with safety.
mm,
And both of us use the term safer, which I really love.
mm,
I'm wondering if you might kind of lead us into who defines safety, what
mm.
is safety,
Yeah.
and how do we understand that in our therapeutic relationships?
Yeah, what's coming up for me right away, Shelby, something you just said is right about like introducing ourselves in an unmasked kind of spontaneous way. And what I'm realizing is one of the fears that I hold in doing that, in being spontaneous and just meeting the moment, is that the likelihood of forgetting something is high. But what's beautiful is I'm realizing now I forgot something, and it's like, oh, great, I can add it in now. So I'm going to. Um, and I feel uncomfortable that this didn't come out earlier, but I'm going to trust the timing and the pacing of this. So the moment we're heading into a conversation about safety in right March 2026, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot to acknowledge that I'm a US citizen. And
Mm.
not only was I born on the lands of Turtle Island, but my parents were too. And so, mm, I think about the ways that, right, the moment we're going to talk about safety, for me and the lenses that I hold as a social justice anti-oppression counselor, is we are automatically talking about privilege and privileged identities and marginalized identities. And we can't, there's no taking them out of a conversation about safety as far as I'm concerned. And so makes me think about for myself as an individual before we get into more of the sort of clinical realm is how right as a white-bodied person, as a US citizen, there are ways that I feel safer on these lands right now than our racialized immigrant humans, right, fellow racialized immigrant humans. um, at the same time, as a trans person, I that's not like I do not feel that added sense of safety, right? From the lens of myself as a trans person, there is a lot of fear that goes with that when I'm just existing in the world. And I am passing a bit more as a masculine person, which was not necessarily an intention, but I do value the added safety that it gives me because I'm not as easily coded as a trans person, which means that I may be less susceptible to violence. Maybe. Um,
Yeah.
So when we take that and when we apply it to a counselor-client therapeutic relationship, what comes up for me is, well, one, something you and I were talking about is, and I learned this through different anti-racist spaces I've existed in, about the idea is of safer, not safety, because depending on a person's lived experience and their both privileged and marginalized identities, what is safe to one person may be radically different to another person, right? And what often happens, especially in group spaces, or if there's different identities among counselor and client, oftentimes this idea of safety is determined by the people with the most privilege in the space, right? So safer, right? There may be spaces, right? You and I, for instance, right? We're both white folks, so there may be ways that um, our sense of feeling safer is impacted by our whiteness. But then you as a cis person, me as a trans person, right? Something may feel safer to you, and I might be like, oh shit, like this, no, like I don't think this is okay for me. Right? So how a sense of safety or feeling safer, right? A space being safer is directly tied to things like race, gender, class, religion, sexual orientation, language, right? Who's a citizen, who's an immigrant, neurotype, something I think about a lot, and I can get kind of fiery and feisty about this, is that I strongly believe as a counselor that I do not have the right to tell or to determine for a client what is safer for them, right? That only a client gets to tell me whether they're feeling a sense of being safer with me versus how they might feel in other spaces. And it's something that we collaboratively co-create together. And I don't, you know, I guess I there are times where maybe being censored is a good thing. I'm not sure, but I want to be sensitive because I do think as therapists, I think we're all doing the best we can with what we know in the moment. And I think there are a lot of therapists out there who might not realize that they actually don't have the power to determine what safer is for their clients. And that honestly, it will be really arrogant of us to tell a client that this is a safer space when it's really up to the client, their nervous system, right? Their body to tell us what they're experiencing with us.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of them may not actually be able to tell us that.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's a matter of being attuned, connected, I think, and curious of like,
Mhm.
what a missed opportunity if I just decide what safety is instead of kind of that collaboration aspect of might this be a good option or that, or
Uh-huh.
know that you are welcome to participate in this way or that way, or
Mhm.
how's this feeling, how's that feeling, instead of
Yeah.
needing our clients to know or teach us as well what safety is or safer.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Right. Especially for our clients who have a historic fawn response, right? That people pleaser, appeaser, the likelihood of them telling us that something we do bothers them or annoys them or doesn't feel good to them is really low. So to your point about attuning, it's like, right, us picking up on how likely is this person to express their honest truth to us, and how can we make it as easy as possible for them to feel like it could be safe enough to tell us something and that we're not going to run away or abandon them. And
Mm.
I think about something I've done with clients, one of many things, because I would say over the years, I mean, I lost count. I don't want to say every, I'll say maybe most clients have come to me um, and sharing almost immediately that they've been harmed by the mental health field. And now they're coming to work with me, who explicitly works with neurodivergent clients from an anti-oppression lens. Um, And so they're willing to try it again, but they're coming in with all of this harm. And so one way that I've tended to that, if clients want it, is we implement a feedback ritual, right? So I'm a big fan of rituals and transitions and honoring those moments. And sometimes it happens at the end of a session. There could be an invitation for those of us who process at a different pace and need more time. And maybe we need to like leave the moment and then realize what is true or isn't true for us. It could come over email or sometime after the session, but where the client has an opportunity to share what went well and what they would like to be different in future sessions so that I'm not assuming that I'm doing everything right because I don't know unless someone actually tells me. And I might be doing something that shit is pissing someone off or is difficult for them. And again, I might not know because they might be really good at hiding those things for their own sense of safety.
Also, I'm thinking about, part of why I use the word safe enough or safer instead of safe is because I don't actually want to try to create a perfectly safe environment. It's something that I couldn't even presume to take on. I don't know if an earthquake's going to happen. I don't know if another group member is going to say something that could create activation in someone's body. I don't know. I don't want to be tiptoeing around, but I would love to be creating a space that folks feel safe enough to be able to start building trust together over time. The amount of people that have come into my office that will be kind of nervous, those ones that have been harmed in mental health or health and wellness spaces, that'll say something like, I don't know, I don't trust you yet in the first session. And I'm like, why would you? It scares me when they say that because they believe or others have told them that they need to trust them or the work won't work. And I take a completely different approach. I'm like, why would you trust me? It's my job to show up here in a way as consistently as possible, as caring as possible, doing what we said we were going to do together to show you over time. And then when I've missed you, help work through repairs. Like this is something we're going to do over time. And we're going to work towards creating a safe enough space for you to be able to speak up, for you to be able to offer feedback, for you to be able to say yes, to be able to say no. There cannot, in my mind, be this is a safe space from day one or really ever.
Oh, oh my gosh. Shelby, I have a few thoughts based on that. I'll try to remember them. Yes, I love that you just shared that. And it makes me think, I'm thinking of a couple of different anti-oppressive spaces that I've existed in. And they've used, instead of the word safer space, they've used that this is a brave or a braver space. And just wanting to throw that out there because again, right, as another way of addressing that like there's no such thing as universal safety. Not in the world that we live in. Um, and so, right, like this encouragement of like how can we show up in a way that's courageous, but that, yeah, and right, like honestly, Shelby, if someone's holding a space and they're like publicly saying this is a safe space, I'm gonna be cautious. I'm gonna be skeptical. Um, and I think it's important, right? And as neurodivergent people, I think that's actually a discernment that is really important for our well-being
Mhm.
because we're really good at believing people, right? At taking people at their face value, right? At being literal. And I think that's where a lot of harm gets done because someone might have great intentions, but then it's like if, say, you or me, our nervous system is giving us feedback that says something's not right here, and maybe there's a contraction or a tension I'm feeling in my body in response to something that doesn't feel right, that dissonance, right, especially for those of us who are historic fawners, that dissonance might lead us to say, oh, this is a me problem. The person said this is a safe space. So if I'm not feeling good, it must be my fault. Right.
Yeah.
And for those of us who have such histories of, I like to use the term internalized gaslighter, right? Some of us have such a profoundly expert level internalized gaslighter that it doesn't occur to us that it might not be a me problem, right?
Yes.
And then that just perpetuates the cycles of harm that we end up enduring because, well, someone said this is what it was supposed to be. And
Mm.
so many, especially people assigned female at birth who've been socialized as girls and or women, right? How often we were taught that it's our fault if we are experiencing something different than what the expectation or the so-called norm is.
Or what the expert says.
Oh, yes. Yes. Right. Oh,
Mhm.
and to your point too, like, and I write this in the book as well, like what you're saying is, right, that we're strangers when people first meet us. And yes, okay, we have this title and we went to school for it and we have this training and in an ideal world, all therapists would be safe enough people. But the reality is trust takes time to build. And trusting someone the moment you meet them is risky. And I tell people the same thing of like, you earn my trust through time and experience, and me showing you that I'm trustworthy. Me telling you that I'm trustworthy means nothing.
Yeah, you telling me this is a safe space and that you're a trustworthy person is when I go find the exit door. I'm not a fawner in those situations ever.
Oh, good for you.
I'm the person that stands up, makes it clear that my chair has just been shoved back and slams the door.
Well, and I'm having a moment too of thinking of all of our autistic and or right KCS fast or ADH, ADHD people who are listening to this and how important that is, right? Like I would have really benefited from hearing this message a long time ago.
Yeah.
That if something feels off to me, even though someone else is saying it's fine, that's a red flag and that I deserve to take myself seriously and pay attention to that.
Oh, but Nick, that's just your trauma.
Oh, Shelby, my my prefrontal cortex just chimed in there fast enough, or I was about to give you the middle finger.
Yes, come on.
I was so close.
You can.
Oh my God. Well, okay, so clearly that is one of the fastest ways to invoke my fire. Um,
Yes. You know what I mean, but yes.
I do. I do.
So I'm hoping this doesn't take us into a tangent and brings us back towards what you just noted. But I was thinking about safety in terms of neurodivergent safety and what that might look like because
Uh-huh.
we don't know. Um, and how there can be these trauma focused, nervous system regulation focused ways of looking at what regulated means. And I was thinking how me as a neurodivergent person, when I feel safe, I'm going to be moving my body a lot more. I'm going to be
Uh-huh.
clapping my hands. I'm going
Uh-huh.
to seem like I am just like going to burst out of my skin, because
Uh-huh.
I'm
Uh-huh.
taking those layers off that keep me so still all the time.
Yes.
But that, if I was like flapping my arms to somebody that didn't understand,
Uh-huh.
that for me, it means I'm safe enough to let more parts of myself out. They
Yes.
might want to call that, oh, this body doesn't feel safe. It needs more regulation. It needs some more trauma healing. And if we were not collaborating on what safety meant for me, and if that actually felt good to me, if it felt like more of me, if it felt like that is the way that I am expressed as myself, somebody might miss it if they were deciding what safety looked like for my body.
Oh, I feel so much in response to your sharing. I think grief foremost. And it's so interesting as I saw your body moving more, I noticed that mine started to move more. And I'm rocking in my chair more than I was before, which is really satisfying for my body to do. And I'm so thankful. I would be so sad as much as what you're talking about and that dissonance that happens. I feel sad about that, but I feel so sad if we miss talking about this, right? Because this is a whole other huge part of the conversation that we didn't get to. And oh, I have so many feels. It is such a visceral response to, right, that idea of how other people, maybe well-intentioned people, I'd like to think, right, decide for themselves what a so-called regulated body ought to look like and how steeped in ableism and white supremacy those maybe well-intentioned ideas are, and how harmful they can be to people.
Yeah. Do you want to say why?
Why it's harmful?
Mhm.
Sure.
I mean, somebody might not know. They might go, "Oh, but this was just, like a primitive reflex that didn't get integrated as a child, and as soon as we can just get that integrated, then they'll stop moving their body like that," you know,
mm.
with a well-intentioned
Oh,
meaning.
I'm having there is
Meh.
so much information coming into my system at once right now. Um, wow, from my own history, different experiences I've been in, right? Just all sorts of systemic pieces, right? Flapping, being misinterpreted. I want to also bring in, for me, a big one is other sensory elements of existing in a space and the lights, for instance, and how much courage it's taken me. Like I'm thinking of like going to a doctor's appointment, for instance, and the fluorescent lights, and I'm like, I can't fucking see. Like this is not going to work for me. And being able to, like what it means to maybe ask for those lights to go off, and how people could interpret, right? If I'm not explaining why I need those lights off, and if those lights aren't bothering the other person, right? What that means that, oh, Nick needs the lights off, right? And I could even feel my whole face got like that super judgy, like as though I'm mimicking how other people
Mhm.
respond to our sensory needs, which is deeply tied to a sense of safety. Okay, I guess I'm the journey of like how uncensored to be, especially like when people don't know me that well. I think I can feel a little more cautious of how uncensored I am and recognizing that I don't know our listeners.
I think they appreciate real and honor if you don't feel safe to be real or uncensored.
I mean, so right, it's the epitome of ableism, is the epitome of one of a core way that autistic people get missed and harmed. And that would be an example of a macroaggression, I would say, as well. Right? So a macroaggression is express harm, right, to an autistic person in this case, where their innate, natural, um, authentic to them ways of inhabiting their body, right? In this case, we're using the example of flapping, right? Like that might be the most beautiful state of homeostasis for that person, right? Maybe flapping is in response to joy. Maybe flapping is in response to something is too much. So I'm going to move my body in this way that allows me to metabolize that energy in the only ways that are possible in this moment because maybe I want to leave, but I can't. So I'm going to engage in movement that helps me to be here in the ways that I can. And oh, I feel my fury. It's like in my throat. It was started as grief, now it's fury in my throat, and so it's making it a little challenging, right? What we know about executive function, and like thinking,
Mm.
intellectual thoughts, right? When the big feels show up, prefrontal cortex not as available, where my reasoning is. Um, and again, and let's assume, right, these are well-intentioned people who are saying, oh, it's, I think you said something about primitive reflexes, right? Your primitive reflexes aren't integrated. If they were, you wouldn't do that. And then you would be like so-called fine or, oh God, so-called normal. Oh. I notice it really does take the words right out of it takes my words away. It's like
Which
the
is
most
kind of the
profoundly
point.
harmful thing that someone could say. It is like the
Yeah.
most profound invalidation of a person's humanity and existence. And it's, that person might as well be saying who you are is fundamentally wrong. You have no right to be moving your body that way. And if you were a valid human, you would be still.
Mm.
Do you know that? Right? That's what that person is unknowingly saying, right? If we were to decode what that means when someone says, "Oh, if you just had these your reflexes integrated, then you wouldn't do that. Then you would be like a typical person." They're basically saying, "How dare you exist? Who do you think you are? You have no right to inhabit your body in that way." Yeah, and
Yeah.
I imagine if the well-intentioned person heard that, they'd be horrified and be like, "No, no, no, that's not what I mean." Right? But in a similar way, right? Like the ways oppression works, right? And as a white person, right, I grew up in the dominant culture, and this dominant culture is steeped in racism. You can't exist in this country. You can't have been raised in this country and not have had that racism seep in, right? So it's my job to actively dismantle and work with that racism so that I can release it and not enact
Mhm.
it and not cause harm. And it's the same with ableism, right? We live in a dominant culture that, as my mentor, Dr. Carla Sherrill would say, it's in the air we breathe, right? So it's not to like make ourselves wrong. It's just to be real about what is. So we internalize that ableism just as much. And then well-intentioned people, uncensored me, is like they say stupid shit, not realizing how harmful it is to that person. And if the
Yeah.
other person, depending on the power differential or the other person's trauma history, and if they're a people pleaser, they might not ever feel like they could say it, but they're going to
Mhm.
feel it. And it's going to cause them more trauma.
Yeah. And I mean, we couldn't say it enough. It's so many folks are well intentioned and they're doing what their
Yes.
teachers taught them.
Yes.
They're very
Yes.
expert teachers.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And it's, you know, often out of a client comes in and they're suffering with something and they
Mm-hmm.
want
Mm-hmm.
help. And the first impulse is like, I
Mm-hmm.
can help.
Mm-hmm.
But when we aren't in collaboration, when we aren't in curiosity,
Yeah.
when we aren't aware of our internalized ableism,
Yeah.
we can do harm.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it makes me think, Shelby, and one of the questions that I'm getting asked most often now, having recently had this book published, is, why did you write it? And I'm thinking when you say that, it's like, right, so I went to grad school for somatic counseling psychology. I would say that somatic work has been life-changing for me. I'm profoundly grateful for it and deeply invested in it. And at its essence, like any modality not created by autistic or otherwise neurodivergent people for autistic and other forms of neurodivergence, right? They're going to be inherently ableist. And somatic work is no exception to that.
No.
And that's one of those things that I used to be really scared to say it out loud, right? Especially as I was more of a people pleaser because I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to piss people off. And now I still feel a little nervous maybe saying it, but it has to be said, right? And that's why this book exists because there's a lot of really well-meaning providers out there doing mostly good work. But it's inevitable that we're gonna, as therapists, we're gonna have autistic and or VAST or ADH clients come into our office, whether we know it or not. And if we're not holding this awareness of how ableism, right, which intersects with white supremacy and all the other systems of oppression, if we're not tracking that, you bet we're going to be causing harm.
Yeah. Right down to how we understand autism and
Yes.
ADHD, which has been mostly through stereotype and stigma.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm noticing, right, because we're talking about you and I, right, as people who are actively on their unmasking journeys, am having a moment of noticing discomfort in me. And so I want to practice with just naming it in the moment because I think it's going to help me. And who knows, maybe our listeners will feel supported by this too. But I feel, right? So I said a brave thing, I said a bold thing, and now I notice a lot of discomfort. And it happens to be, for me, I think in this moment, if I could identify it, I think it's like in my belly and like a little bit of churning and a little bit of like, Nyck, you shouldn't have said that. Like,
Mm.
Nyck, you know you're not allowed to say that, right? Because and what shows up for me, the image is of like all the people I just pissed off and all the people I just offended and all the people who might want to say, fuck you, Nyck. All right. And that's a valid response. Um, and I think saying it out loud, right? Just even being in this present moment process with you, acknowledging it and naming it, I can feel already is like, oh, I can release it. Like that's not mine, that's actually theirs. And how
Mhm.
often as people socialized as girls and women in particular who are on our unmasking journey, how often that's a part of our present moment reality, right? We take a
Yeah.
risk and then the fear shows up and they're like, oh fuck, I wasn't supposed to do that, right? And then we might otherwise spiral into anxiety or self-doubt or like, oh my God, fear of what's going to happen. And sometimes there are very real consequences that we deal with and other times, right, in this moment between me and you, right, because you and I are creating a safer space for each other right here, right now, I can say that out loud and it actually helps it to dissipate versus
Yeah.
now creating divided attention and that I have to, track this anxiety for the rest of our conversation while pretending that, oh yeah, I'm fine. Everything's good.
Yes. How does it feel now that you spoke it?
I feel a relief.
Mm.
And I think it reminds me of why putting this book out into the world, especially in 2026 and in general, has felt so profoundly brave because it is so radical. And so I'm reminded and I'm almost like feeling the validation and affirmed of like, yeah, that was a really scary thing to do. Because here's like a micro experience of that fear showing up. And it's
Yeah.
also really comforting to say it out loud to a person I feel safe enough to say it out loud to.
Yes. I'm so glad. Are you open to a reflection?
Yes, now I feel a little shy and maybe want to hide, but yes, I am here. I am grounded. I've got a nice rock in my hand.
You can
So
throw it if you
please.
need to. When you shared that you were having, feelings like the discomfort, mind went searching for, wait, I didn't even realize you said anything that was so potentially offensive. And what was it? So listening to you, everything you're saying in my heart feels so rational. And others may have caught what you're meaning, but I'm so with you that I was like, "Wait, what did you say?" Did you know? I don't know how it is to hear that, if
Uh,
that feels validating or invalidating.
I mean, I appreciate it. I think it's a little, it almost makes me chuckle at the like the difference, right, in our experience in the present moment. Um, and I feel really grateful to hear that. And right, it's people like you who give me well, right, who I think motivated me to write the book in the first place because there are people out there who are eager to soak this up and agree with me, right? And
Yeah,
like that's what I have to remember. Like that's what like that's who I wrote the book for. And hopefully the people who maybe, and I even say this in the introduction to the book, like I give readers permission to not agree with everything I have to say. And multiple times throughout, I say like, yeah, it's okay if you don't like what I'm saying right now or you don't agree. And I encourage you to notice the feelings and also can you consider what I'm saying? And you don't have to like it, you don't have to agree, it might not feel true for you, but can you consider it? And that's
yeah,
really my invitation is can we consider that we might be causing harm that we didn't know that we were, we didn't think we were, and maybe we're even horrified to consider that we could be inadvertently causing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the, you probably have this experience in your teaching, and the people who come to you, generally the people who really, 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 really want to make sure they're not causing harm are the ones that are listening right now and are the
Yeah,
ones that
yeah,
take our
yeah,
courses and programs and read your book
yeah,
because they do care so much. And
yeah.
so I just want to appreciate
Mm.
those folks too, because
Yeah,
there's so much we're learning right now that we did not know before.
yeah.
And it's a lot to digest. There's a lot to unlearn, and
Mhm.
there can be a lot of shame. There can be a lot of like, wait, what? I and for me that was true. I never heard the word autism in graduate school. What, 15 years ago?
Uh-huh.
We never talked about ADHD. It was always through the lens of trauma, essentially. And I wasn't taught how to assess for it in
Yeah.
school. It was
Uh-huh.
like, we leave that to the experts. And
Uh-huh.
that in itself was so harmful because I was in those classes.
Mhm.
I was should have been learning about myself and my own neurotype
Mhm.
and how to care for people just like me, which I have been, but I also didn't care for many people as well as I could have because I was not taught this. And I should have been, because let me tell you, when you know how to look for autism, it's pretty blaringly obvious, you know? And just the way the power play was on that in our own psychology community, also, I would say would probably be linked to colonialism and white supremacy and ableism.
Right, I so honor your humility, and as I listen to you, right, I feel so much compassion for you and also for myself, right? Like I've made so many mistakes along the way. Right? I didn't know all this years ago, and right, that's just it. And I think that that humility, right, that acknowledging to our listeners that right, you and I too, right, we're constantly learning and unlearning, and that we have both made plenty of mistakes that we have done our best to repair and to do better in the future. And, right, I think this is part of this moment, right? This podcast episode is part of us being invested in doing better.
Yes, absolutely. And I can absolutely own I was so pretentious about really looking at everything through a trauma lens. And even though it wasn't a pathologizing trauma lens,
Uh-huh,
it was just a little, let's get your nervous system supported.
uh-huh, uh-huh,
um, I still missed
yeah,
things that I wouldn't now.
uh-huh,
And I
uh-huh,
while I wish it was different, it wasn't.
yeah, right,
So I'm on fire about this too
uh-huh,
because it's so near and dear to my heart, and
yeah,
ooh, it's so real.
mhm. It
And the
is so
suffering that
real.
comes with it is so real.
So real. Yeah. I feel so much compassion and empathy for us and for all of our listeners, right? Who um I didn't realize at first that it was a Maya Angelou quote, but it was Maya Angelou who said, when we know better, we do better. And I think, right, those of us who are so heart-centered, who care so deeply, I think that's the path that we are on. And and that's where too I think a systems approach is so important because it's not just, oh, I made these mistakes, as though me in isolation, as though I'm a bad person, or that a bad therapist, right? But that we live in a dominant culture that is rooted in, right, white supremacy, colonization, ableism, neurotypicality, all of those things. And so that, seeps through all the systems, and then we're a product of that system. And I think it's so important that we zoom out and make it more than just me with me, because it is more than me with me or you with you or our listeners with themselves. And with that, it's like, I think then being more honest about what is our responsibility and what isn't. And that's where I think if we were to just for a moment even tie in like counselor well-being, right? It's like what are we responsible for and what are we not? And we're not
Mhm.
responsible for the harm the system causes. We're responsible for unlearning and undoing our part. And
Yes.
ideally doing our part to help dismantle the system, but we can't blame ourselves that the system is there in the first place.
And just like any other marginalized identity, it's hard when you are a person who is living that identity, trying to dismantle
Mhm,
the system.
mhm.
It's
Absolutely.
scary. It's
Uh-huh,
overwhelming. I
uh-huh.
hit microaggressions,
Absolutely.
macroaggressions
Yeah.
that are very well intended.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
it's hard work.
It undoubtedly, which is why it's so essential that we have other people with shared neurotype and shared identities, right? Whatever the marginalized identity be, that we have shared human connection with folks so that we can feel less isolated and less alone, and that there are other people who get it and we don't have to explain and over explain ourselves all the freaking time.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something about what we've been talking about that makes me want to share something I've been thinking about a lot lately. I think I actually told you about it in a text recently, which is something, my whole life I've spoke with therapists. I was like, I'm autistic. I swear, I feel autistic, and every therapist either laughed at me, told me, my dad's autistic, you're nothing like my dad,
Uh-huh.
um,
Uh-huh.
that's trauma. Let's just get you more regulated and then you'll be
Mhm.
great and fine. And when I finally, after slogging through mental health issue in quotes after mental health issue in quotes for decades, identified myself and then also was identified by a practitioner as ADHD. It was like I finally felt free. I felt like that thing that had felt off my entire life, that I had been searching for, that I've been trying to fix, that others have been trying to fix, that I've been trying to explain and understand. I felt like all the way back to the moment I was born, like everything was whole. And I've been searching for years and years and years. And I just, when I realized, I was like, oh my God, it was so obvious. But nobody would listen. Nobody would slow down long enough. I felt like nobody cared, even though everybody, people cared. And so when people come in and they're like, they want to question it, but what if it's this? What if it's, oh, but you don't look autistic? Whatever it is, it's not connected to that moment. It's connected to 40 some years of begging the universe to help me find myself and figure out
Yeah.
what felt off. And it wasn't me that was off.
Uh-huh.
It
Uh-huh.
was my experience of the world and how I
Yeah.
interacted with that and the systems at play.
Mm,
But every time a care provider just gives me that little like head nod, like, are you sure you're autistic? I think we can fix this.
mm, mm,
Like I was recently told I had a
mhm,
people phobia that could be fixed because I live 2 hours from a grocery store away from all humans. One, if I was a male identified person, I probably wouldn't have gotten that. And two, it's my greatest joy to live 2 hours from civilization. And it got pathologized because an expert wanted to decide something out of their internalized ableism.
mm.
And every time that happens, I feel like someone wants to take away 40 years of me looking for myself and the moment I felt free.
Are you up, Shelby? Would a response to that be okay?
Yes.
And for listeners, I've had my hand on my heart the whole time that I'm listening to Shelby share this. And well, first, Shelby, I am so sorry,
Mm.
right? And I know we're peers, we're colleagues, we're now friends. Um, but I think about right how part of my role as a therapist is I'm that person who is apologizing on behalf of the mental health field to the people I work with, right? And
Yeah.
again, like that idea of like what's my responsibility and what's not. I'm not responsible for the whole mental health field. And as someone who represents that field, I'm responsible to create reparative experiences.
Mm.
And I just feel I'm having this moment of feeling how I embody that in my role as therapist of like that desire to make it right, right? To make it better. And with what you went through, I'm sure there's no amount of times that would be too much to hear that, like, you should never have had that experience, right? Of people telling you you don't know who you are. And I feel the grief, right? And the rage that
Yeah.
you were deeply invalidated to your core for 40 plus years. And nothing will
Mm.
ever make that okay, right? Nothing ever will ever make that right.
Right.
And again, I think like, right, the fire that you have and that I have, and why this moment right here is existing, right? Why we're having this conversation, why you're doing this podcast is to help, why I wrote the book, right? Is to help make sure that that stops, that no other person goes through that experience again of being told, you don't know who you are. Like that is trauma, right? Like I feel like I'm on my soapbox all of a sudden of like people want to be like, oh, it's just trauma, it's just trauma. It's like, no, you're actually creating the trauma right now by telling me I don't know who I am.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Autism is just a feeling. It's just autism isn't a feeling. That's what I would get all the time. I feel autistic in the middle of a full-fledged meltdown.
Oh, Shelby.
I'm
Oh,
laughing because it's
Shelby.
uncomfortable.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Autism isn't a feeling. Um, yeah, my prefrontal cortex is not responsible for creating perfect sentences while I'm in the middle of a meltdown.
God. Oh, God.
And you knew what you were looking for, you would know. I never
Mhm.
turn the big light on.
Uh-huh.
It's it's tricky, it's complex. And
Yeah.
so I think that is part of why we're both so adamant about this because the pain that comes with
Mhm.
being missed
Mhm.
and then not
Mhm.
only being missed, experiencing people constantly like, stop being so sensitive, stop being you, stop being you. And then someone saying, I can fix who you are and make you different. It's just not okay. It's not okay anymore.
No, no, no. And it never was.
Mhm.
It's not okay. I think I feel that part of me as I listen to you, right, that holds the lens of like my own lived experience, right, as both client and as counselor and counselor educator. I feel that part of me that like feels like I should access my compassion and empathy for those well-meaning people. And I have moments where it's like just my fire is present. Right? Like
Yes.
I'm trying to hold both, right? Because I'm not advocating for people to shame themselves for the mistakes they made, but I absolutely am advocating for them to do better, for them to learn and unlearn and do better because you are living proof, right? Like we are living proof of the harm that gets caused when
Yeah.
that narrative is normalized.
Yeah. Well, and the proof really is in me in the way that man, I have done every trauma modality from here to the sun for decades,
Uh,
West, East, traditional, non-traditional.
uh,
And I really did a lot. I experienced trauma,
yeah. Uh-huh.
significant
Uh-huh.
trauma.
Uh-huh.
And it didn't help. It didn't help
Uh-huh.
much. It
Mhm.
helped all of my clients.
Uh-huh.
But
Uh-huh.
I still felt in so much pain. I still melted down. I still
Yeah.
suffered. And
Yeah.
as soon as it clicked, it took a few
Uh-huh.
years to
Uh-huh.
really click.
Sure.
The freedom that came
Mm.
was the freedom that
Mm.
I was searching for in therapeutic intervention after therapeutic intervention, and the compassion was there. There was so much space. I now understood the mask versus what was underneath the mask instead of like being pulled in all directions. There was so much freedom just to like, I will do whatever I want. I will move to the middle of nowhere.
Oh, oh God, I'm so grateful you got there.
Yeah. I mean, there's other places I will go, but there is
Sure. Oh,
huge. I was sure that I would live the rest of my life feeling borderline suicidal. So, yeah, it's massive. And so many other people get to feel that when they're identified properly within themselves
yeah.
or with the help of another.
Right, and that's the level of the stakes we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right, like it's life or death, right? Like I think about for trans folks, often gender affirming care, right, is often thought of as life or death, right? And there's a reality to what you're describing of like having language and understanding and validation for who you are and why you are the way you are can be a matter of life or death. That's how
Yeah,
serious we need to be taking this.
absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's why my fire burns so hot right now.
Yeah, for good reason.
Yeah.
For such good reason. And, it makes me think about too, and it's interesting, right? You bring this up because this was a light bulb moment for me in my journey, right? Of coming into my autistic identity, of learning that autistic people, as they heal from or integrate trauma, that we often become more sensitive. That was like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a revelation type moment because that was absolutely true. As my trauma got more integrated into my system, in some ways my disability increased.
Yeah.
Um, and right, I use the word disability from the social model of disability lens, but right, my sensory sensitivities increased, right? My social battery decreased, right? My needs became much more foreground in ways that before I could mask my way out of them. Or I could, blame myself or, oh, it's a me problem. But then suddenly, once the language was there and the more radical honesty was there, it got louder. And I
Yes.
wonder if, yeah, if that's something that you maybe can relate to too. Like probably, right, like you said, you never would have allowed yourself to live 2 hours from other, from humanity in quotes before.
Totally.
And now
Yeah.
it's like the greatest self-permission and freedom and liberation.
It really is. And not everybody can give that to themselves,
Mhm,
especially while integrating something so massive.
mhm,
But it has given me the realization that the disabling of me in many places is real. Like, because here I don't have the social overwhelm. I don't have the sensory over I do have sound overwhelm here, but there's so many things that have been uh taken farther away from me,
mhm.
and I can feel myself finally. I know who I am finally, because if I'm around another person for even 30 minutes now, I watch how fast the mask comes back in, and I walk away and I doubt myself. I don't like myself. I don't can't really find myself for a little while. It takes a while to transition.
Ah,
And I realized I lived 45 years like this.
ah,
And when I'm out here, I like myself a lot and I'm having fun doing things
ah,
that I find to be so enjoyable,
ah,
that are like puzzles and baking and
ah,
hanging out with horses.
ah,
um,
ah,
but when I'm not here, I'm doubting how cool I am, where I fit in, if what I'm doing is in quotes normal. And here I'm just like, well, I can't run to the store and get another hobby. And it's just the greatest gift in the world. And
Ah,
I wish everyone could have some version of
yeah.
like, I need out for a while to figure out who this is, who I've been fighting for so long.
Mhm. Mhm.
And when I say
Oh.
out, I mean in.
Oh, I feel so profoundly grateful for you. So grateful. And yeah, to your what you just added too, and I feel acutely aware of how that access to prioritizing, right, coming home to ourselves, to that freedom and liberation, how deeply tied it is to privilege and who has access to what resources and support and things like that. So I just want to acknowledge that I want this for everybody. And the reality is that in the world that we're living in, not everybody will have access to that. And
Most people won't.
right. And
Yeah.
I'm profoundly celebrating that you have gotten to experience this freedom and this liberation. And what a beautiful testament to what's possible when we are validated in who we are and have language for who we are.
Yeah. I am still aware of the thing that you wrote down like 7 hours ago in front of you. Have we touched upon that topic?
I think we did.
Did we?
Oh, maybe we
When
didn't.
when you were like talking about being in the space and having the part of you go, ooh, something's not right for me.
Uh,
And I so rudely said, oh, but Nick, that's just your trauma.
right, right, right.
I feel like there's something about that that might still need care, maybe, or talking about.
Mm.
Is there anything around that that you feel like is important to share?
I mean, I think us talking about how oftentimes our sensitivity grows in response to trauma healing as autistic and or right ADH or KCS FAT people. Um, I think that is definitely a part of it. Let me just take a moment and feel into if there's something else that wants to get named right now. Yeah, I mean, I can feel the ways it touches into it touches into drama actually. And I'm feeling parallels with some really difficult experiences I had when I came out as a transmasculine person. And right, like someone saying it's just trauma is like just the most profound invalidation. It erases a person's entire humanity and existence. And it's unfortunate that most, I don't want to say all, but most close to all, but we have a new generation coming up where fortunately some of them are getting to have different experiences. Um, but it's rare to meet an autistic and or ADH person who doesn't also have trauma because of the dominant culture we live in, but their neurotype is their neurotype, and it is not synonymous with trauma. You wouldn't know it from the DSM or from the dominant narrative, but there is such a thing as really happy autistic people, right? Autistic people who are thriving, right? We exist. And if it was just trauma, that would not be true.
They can be independent of each other and coexisting.
And right, like my rocking in response to joy has nothing to do with trauma. And in fact, the more joyful I am, oftentimes the more my body will move.
I dare you to say the word delight.
So, for those listeners who don't know, I use the term sensory delight a lot. And in getting to know Shelby over the last few months, I learned that That is one of their least favorite words, delight. And so it's sort of a little joke between us now about whether it's okay or not for me to use the word delight in Shelby's presence.
As long as I can laugh. Ah, yes. I think that that would be such a great segue to you talking about your book. Because it is such an important, beautiful part of what you've written in your book about accessing delight, joy, pleasant, neutral, and how healing it can be, and just a very important part about honoring neurodivergence and neurodivergent healing.
Yeah, thank you for that invitation. I think it's almost hard, even though I wrote it and spent, I can't tell you how many hours with this project, it's hard to talk about because I realize that there's so many elements to it, right? Like I've been told that it is, well, the intended audience was therapists. I've been told that it feels just as accessible and relevant to people who are clients, to people who are parents raising neurodivergent kids, people who are partner to neurodivergent folks. I've been told that it feels like sitting across from each other in the living room on the couch, like listening to me share about something I'm really passionate about. Um, Something that's really unique about it is that while it's about neurodivergent affirming anti-oppressive care, um, and I introduce my model for what I believe is like what ought to be a standard for neurodivergent anti-oppressive care, and that model is neurodivergent somatics. Um, it's written in a way that it is both about how to support clients as well as for therapists how to support themselves for therapists of all neurotypes. So it's written with the awareness that there's going to be autistic, there's going to be ADHD therapists reading it. There'll be therapists who are neurodivergent in other ways. There'll be therapists who are questioning their neurotype. Maybe they didn't know they were questioning it coming into reading the book, but they might leave questioning it. Um, and then there are therapists who are neurotypical reading the book, and it's written in a way that supports all it to the best of my ability, right? That supports all neurotypes and really helps clients be able to take the theoretical and apply it in a concrete way and how to really role model for their clients what it is that we're talking about so that, right, to go back to earlier about this idea of building trust with clients, it's that congruence, right? It's I say what I mean and I mean what I say that helps clients' nervous systems be able to receive signals of whether they're in a trusting, safer space or not. And so I guide therapists on how to be able to do that for themselves with their clients. So it's not just a theory they're talking about, but they're actually getting to embody it themselves.
Mm, it's so beautiful. And I would say, I mean, I'm biased because I am a therapist, that any person who even isn't a therapist could read the first three chapters and learn
Mm,
so much about neurodivergent
mm,
people
mm,
and other folks from marginalized populations.
mm. Thank you. That's really good to know.
Yeah. Yeah. I have recommended it to some of my nerdier clients who love to read therapist books, even though they're not therapists, who are autistic.
Oh, thank you so much, Shelby. Similar to our conversation today, may the harm that has been done for centuries be slowly undone and dismantled, and may this book be play a role in that process as our conversation today.
Yes, it. I believe it already is and already has in big ways,
Mm,
and will. I think it will change the industry, whether or not you want it to.
mm. I want it to. I just want to hide in the process.
Totally. I mean, I could go on, but I also think whether or not it's related to neurodivergent folks or not, it's a beautiful model of non-pathologizing care in so many
Mm,
ways. So it's really, really just affirming and
mm,
gives so many beautiful examples of like how we might share power or be collaborative with our
mm,
clients, be steady in our own nervous systems, take
mm,
care of ourselves, take care of our clients.
mm. As you say that, I just feel my deep gratitude to all of my teachers, and particularly Dr. Carla Sherrill again, for her influence with social justice and anti-oppression work that set me on this path to be able to integrate my work around neurodivergent affirming care and really weaving together her teachings on anti-oppression. And yeah, there are so many people, human and non-human alike, who supported this journey to make this possible. So just really feeling my gratitude to them.
And just want to express my gratitude to you just
Mm,
for being here, for
mm,
giving of your time, for
mm,
the amount of work and just reflection you have
mm,
done on
mm,
yourself and on your work in the world,
mm,
and just the amount of care that is so present every
mm,
time we talk, whether it's on the friend channel or the colleague channel.
mm.
Thank you.
Oh, Shelby, thank you so much for what you have created and inviting me into your world, both right professionally and personally. I'm so, so grateful.
Yay. Me too.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay, I'm gonna if for people who are watching the video, here's the book, Neurodivergent Somatics in Therapy, an anti-oppressive model for whole person care by Nyck Walsh, MALPC. Oh, and thank you for the free copy.
Mhm.
I felt
With
like the
pleasure.
coolest person in the entire world having that book surprise me in my mailbox. So thank
Oh.
you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Oh, and as you hold it up, just quick shout out to Dr. Giwa Onewu, who wrote the foreword. It is just beautiful. They really just offered their heart to the forward of that work, and I couldn't be more honored to have her for sharing.
It was a really good forward. Any last things that would feel important to share, like how people can find you, what they'll find?
So yeah, you can find me at nyckwalsh.com, and it's NYCK, um, walsh.com. And the pop-up has a link to 20% off and free shipping for orders direct from the publisher for people in the States. The publisher is Norton, and I've been told that there's a delay with Canadian orders, and they're working on getting that figured out. It is also available in the UK and Europe, in English only right now. And I know that's available through Norton directly. I like to encourage people to either order from the publisher, from I believe it's bookshop.org, which is an amazing organization where you can buy from local bookstores who are mostly owned by people with marginalized identities, or your local bookstore. My request is, yeah, to shop local or from the publisher if you can.
Amazing. And we will put links on the show notes wherever you're listening to this or watching this.
If something in this episode stirred something in you, a question, a recognition, a quiet, oh, you can learn more through my website, shelby-lee.com. And before we go, a little reminder to do something kind for yourself today. See you next time.